So in this video, we're going to take a look at JSON today, and I do have a folder that I've really created within our work directory. This is our Python projects, and I have JSON, a kind of created as a folder. So we want to go to, I have that already opened up. I want to create a file inside of it. And let's go ahead and then create a Python file for this, and we're gonna maybe create a folder that we could just possibly call maybe we should just let's call this pass, maybe pass underscore JSON, or whatever you want to call that. All right, so let's create that file, and we're going to work with this right now. And I want to shorten this a little bit, so drag this a little bit over to the left. So before we go ahead and write any lines of code, we want to take a look at what is JSON and why it is actually used. Okay, so some people actually pronounce this as JSON or JSON, so whichever one I use, just know that I'm actually referring to the same thing. So what is actually a JSON? First of all, this is just an acronym for JavaScript Object Notation. Okay, so the full meaning of JSON is JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a lightweight format used for storing and exchanging data, and it is also widely used in web development like APIs and data storage because it is actually easy to read, write, and then parse. And why use JSON? So the first reason why we use JSON is because it is human readable and easy to understand. And the second one is we actually use JSON in APIs for data exchanges between systems. And the third one is also its language independent format. So it works with both Python, JavaScript, PHP, or any other language you can actually think of. Okay, so that is why JSON is actually very widely used. So here is a screenshot of how a JSON actually looks like. So this is the format in creating anything called a JSON. Okay, and we're going to like make use of this in our development as we move along. But this is just basically how it looks like. It looks sometimes like a dictionary. So it looks sometimes like a dictionary or something like a list. Okay, so the one we have right here looks like that of a dictionary. So if you take a look here, you see where they have a name, and then the name is actually the value of the name is given. This is age, and then the value of the age is also given. So just basically something of this nature. This is how JSON structure actually looks like. So this is just a typical example of a JSON structure. So the structure looks just like this. So now that we have seen a JSON structure, we want to learn how we can actually pass a JSON data. And with that means that when we talk about parsing JSON, it means converting JSON data into Python objects such as dictionaries or something like lists. And we're going to experiment with that on this particular environment. So within this environment right now, and the first thing I want to do is that we are going to need a module that is actually called a JSON. So I'm going to just do JSON. This is this basically comes with that of the Python installation. So if you have your Python installed, you should be able to have access to this JSON right here. All right. So have that in there, and down here, what I want to do right now, let me just create a comment in here, and let's just call the JSON string. So to create a JSON string, just like I've already shown you, let's do that right now. So I'm going to create a variable called a JSON underscore maybe something like data as a variable, and we can go ahead and then create the structure right here, which we can basically, I'm going to just put this in quotation and just throw in my curly brackets right here, and this is just basically like a dictionary, right? So we can create whatever we want to create right now. For instance, I'm going to just create a name, and let's say that the name of this person is actually going to be Alice. So let's just basically try to put that in quotes. I think I should just basically get out of this particular place right here. So introduce my colon outside of this place, and then we can go ahead and then create the value right here. So this is going to be Alice, or I'm going to just basically use my own name right here. This is going to be David, and we have that right there. Of course, we need to separate that with comma. The next one is actually going to be, let's say we want to get in the age, so this is going to be age, and let's say that the age of this particular person is, let's say this is going to be 30, and we introduce a comma, and we could also create another value right here. So this is going to be is student. So if the person is a student, we can add a true right there, and if the person is no longer a student, we can just, I'm going to just basically add, what is it called, a boolean value right here, set that to something like false, and we can actually make use of this particular data that we're having here right now to experiment with whatever we want to do. And how do we do that? Remember, we're taking a look at how to like pass JSON data, and that which simply means converting JSON data into something like Python object. And to do that, maybe down here, let me just put something like a comment in here and just say something like convert, or we're going to just say JSON string to Python dictionary. All right, so want to basically, this is a Python string, right? Want to see a way to actually convert it into something like a Python object right now, all right, or Python dictionary. So to do that, to convert this to a Python dictionary, when you get down here, I want to create a variable right here, and maybe we're going to just call this a Python dictionary. Let's make use of Python right there, dict right there. So meaning that we just basically want to convert that to Python dictionary. And if we do that, there is a method that is actually called a load that we are going to actually use. And to do that, we want to use that in combination with this particular module right here. So for that reason, we're going to just do JSON.load, and we can go ahead and then open up our bracket, and of course we need to pass in this particular variable right there. So I'm going to copy that, put that right in here, and with that line, it means that we have actually converted this JSON string right here to Python dictionary. And down here we can now look for a way to print this out. So if we want to print that, we can just do print, and then we can just go ahead and just this is what we're going to print now is called a Python dict right here, and we can go ahead and then run this. So if we save the changes right now, and then we hit on where we have a display button right here, and you see that we do get the Python dictionary down here, and it's basically not a string. So if it were a string, we would have something like this around it. All right, so but this one right here is just basically the Python dictionary. So I've gotten the dictionary out of a string that we got up right here. All right, and if you want to access maybe any of these values that we have here, like if you want to get the name right here, it's also possible. If you want to do that, what you can do is just maybe within here, I want to just put square brackets, and we can go ahead, maybe I'm going to just do name right here, save the changes, and then if we run this again, we're going to see that it's going to just basically print the person's name out. All right, so the same thing applies to any of the data within this place that you want to grab. If you want to grab onto the age, change that to age, and also grab onto this, you can also do that. And I hope that you guys kind of understand that. So what I'm going to do, copy this, and I want to put that maybe right here at the top, and I want to basically take this away, and we can, maybe I will just comment this line out. Sorry about that. So save the changes, and I'm just basically printing out the dictionary down here. So that is it. Now the next thing we want to do is to take a look at how we can pass a JSON from the file. And to do that, we need, let's create a JSON file. I'm going to copy this, and what I want to do is, if I right click right here, I want to create a new file, and this is just, I want this to just be an ordinary file. So let's call this is going to be data, and this is going to be .json. So let's see if we create that right here, and I want to throw in this right here. So this simply means that I've just created a JSON file called a data, and it has some information inside of it. Let me change this. So this is going to be Chiji, and let's say that the age is actually going to be 45, and let's say if the person is a student, I want to set this to true this time around, and then save the changes right here. So what I want to do now is to create a file that I'm going to use to read the content of this particular thing right here. And to do that, maybe let's create another file. And this time around, this is going to be a Python file. And let's say what I'm going to do right now is to, let's say, read_JSON, just to read the JSON file. All right, so within this page right here, to be able to do that, of course, first of all, we need to import our JSON. Let's make sure we do that correctly. This is going to be import JSON, and we'll have that imported. So the next thing is to find a way to open the JSON file, and to do that is going to be very simple. Let's put a comment in here, and then open and read. And to open and read the JSON file, we're going to use the with keyword, and we're going to use the method called open. And now within this open method, the file we want to open is actually this particular file right here called the data.json. .json, right? So we're going to do data, and we'll do data.json, and right here we're going to introduce a comma right here, and we're going to just say read, and we can just say as, maybe we could just call this as file right here. Let's introduce our colon. Then down here we can create a new variable that we could just basically call that data, and I set that to be equal to JSON underscore, no, not underscore, but dot load, because we want to use this method called the load to be able to load the content. And what do you basically want to load? You want to load file, right? So you want to load this particular file right here, which is just basically this particular thing in here. So we're saying that we want to use this particular thing as variable because we're saving that into that right now. So this is now, we should just basically pass in file within this particular place. So down here, what we want to do is to basically go ahead and then print that particular data that we got up here. All right, so to do that, I want to just do print, and we want to go ahead and pass in data right here to be able to print that. And this should just basically output the what we have on this particular page for us. All right, so let's save the changes in here. And then if we hit on run, this is what is going to happen. And you see that we do have the dictionary or the JSON printed down here for us. So this is name and this is Chijoke, age, and then the student is also right here. So that's just basically how you can actually read a JSON file. All right, and this is basically very important if you're working with something like an API and you get the data from an external API like that. So you use this type of method to be able to fetch the content of or the response that is just basically coming from that API. Okay, so this is just really very hard, so you need to take note of that. So the next thing I want to take a look at is how to write JSON data, and with that I mean writing JSON, and with that I mean trying to convert Python objects into JSON formats, and we're going to basically see to that as we move along. So what we want to do, I just basically want to create a new file to be able to do that. So I want to close out these ones that we got right here, and what I'm going to do right here is if I right click on this, and I want to go to Python file right here, and I'm going to just do obj right here and underscore. I'm going to just do to JSON, and what that simply means is that I'm looking for a way to convert Python objects to JSON, right? So that's just what I'm trying to get at. So we'll have that file created right here, and we want to go ahead and write some line of code in here, because the first thing we need to do is to import our JSON. So this is going to be JSON, and if we import our JSON, the next thing I want to do right here is to go ahead and create a Python dictionary. So I'm going to do Python dictionary. Create that is very simple. I've done this before, so I'm going to just do data as a variable, and let's go ahead and then set that to be equal to, throw in our curly brackets right here, and I want to just say name, do colon right here, and maybe this person is actually called a John, so let's call that person John, and we introduce a comma, and the next thing is to bring in the person's age. So I'm going to do age, and let's say that he's actually going to be 35 years old. And finally, let's say if he's a student, we're going to determine, so this is going to be each student, and I want to set that to maybe equal to, let's call that true, so that's true right there. So we do have a dictionary right here, and what we're basically looking for is a way to just like to convert that to something like JSON string. All right, so to do that, when we get down here, I'm going to put a comment, then do the actual converting. So what this means is I want to say convert to JSON strings or string right there. Do that, let's create a new variable, and let's call this is going to be JSON underscore string, and let's set that to, let's make sure I type this correctly. This is going to be set to equal to JSON, and there is a method that is actually called dump that you can actually use. So I'm going to just do the dumps like that, go ahead and then pass in the variable that we have that to be saved into, which is just basically called a data up here, this particular variable. So let's do data, and this is going to be comma. If you want it to like rightly indent the element inside of it, you can just do indent and set that to be equal to maybe 4 places like that, and that should be able to like do that. All right, so down here if you want to print out the result again, so if we do print, and what we basically want to print is going to be this JSON, going to be JSON string right there. All right, so this is going to be JSON, let's type this correctly, JSON string, and should be able to like do that for us, right? So what we want to do, let's just hit on run. We want to run this page right here, so I want to hit in here. Okay, we do have an error, and the error is actually coming from, so if we, I think the error is on line 3 right here. So if you take a look in here, is on this line, and what is the correction they haven't suggested? I want to set this is not defined. Did you mean true? So let's copy this, and if we go back right here, I want to paste that right here, and I save the changes, and if we run again, and you see that it's a kind of a print just fine. So look at what it has just gotten back for us. So this is how we can actually be able to convert that of the Python object to JSON string, right? And the indentation, it kind of works just fine, right? So that is, I think it looks just pretty cool. So that's just basically how to do that, guys. All right, guys. So the next thing I want to take a look at is how to write a JSON data to a file. And with that, it means that we can create a JSON file that is actually empty, and then we can actually write some content into that. And to do that, what I'm going to do is to create a new file right here. And this is just going to be a JSON file. And let's just basically call this something like output. And this is going to be .json, of course. And if you open that up, you see that this is just basically empty, right? Now I want to create a new file, and what I want to do, this one is going to be a Python file. And what I want to do with that is, let's call this I don't know what I will call this right now. Let's say write underscore JSON data, right? And that's just gonna be .py right there. So I want to write this right here. So to do that, first of all, let's import our module right here, which is just called a JSON. And if we have that in place, the next thing I want to do is to create a dictionary right here. So create, and to create that, let's put that in the comment down here. This is going to be data, and let's set that to be equal to, I want to do string in here, and the first item within that place, we'll just say name, and let's say that this is going to just be Adams. So let's set that to Adams. All right, so we do have Adams right there, and let's set his age, and let's say that he's actually 30 years old. This is going to be age, and it's going to be 30. Let's do 30 right here. So let's say he's student, and I think all right, so we got, I think we need to change this to, so that's just basically this should be capital letter, that first letter right there. So we'll have that right there. So the next thing I want to do, I want to put a comment in here, just say write a JSON. So this is going to be write JSON, and to write a JSON, what we want to do right now is of course we do have a file we have created. We do not actually have any content inside of it yet, and what I want to do right now is I'm going to just down here, let's use the keyword called a with, and then we're going to just use the open method. And first of all, let's reference to the file we want to write to, which is just going to be output like that. Of course it's output.json, so we need to put the whole file name right there. And down here, this time around, instead of doing something like R, we are not reading, we are just writing, so we need to put W right here. And when we did all this file management of a thing, I think we saw when we did all this, right? So what I'm gonna just do as file, just to be sure that I'm gonna start using this particular file right there. So I'm gonna put a colon, and then down here I'm gonna just do JSON, and we can use the same method as we used before, which is actually called a dump, to be able to do this, guys. So I'm gonna just do JSON.dump, and within this particular method right here, we're gonna need like 3 parameters right here. And the first one is actually this particular variable called data right here. So I'm gonna do data, and if we do data right here, the second thing that we'll need right here is actually going to be this particular file. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and then finally we can decide whether we want to indent it or not, format it or not. So this one is actually meant for format. So if I do indent, set that to 4, you can set it to 3 or 5 if you want, right? So that's just basically all about the formatting in there. So down here, the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and then print out the result. So to print the results right here, we'll just do print, and we basically want to maybe pass a message in here. If we could just say something like JSON data saved to maybe output, or this is going to be output.json file, right? So we're going to test that right now, and to do that, let's save the changes first of all. And if we hit on where, remember this file has nothing inside of it right now, right? So if we hit on run, let's see what is going to happen, and then we'll have a message down here that says JSON data saved to the output.json file. So if we check in here, you see that we'll now have the content printed into this particular place for us. You see how we're able to like a kind of write data into this particular output. So this is really very cool, guys. It's really pretty cool. So that just is also really very important if you are going to be working with APIs, or maybe you want to grab some data from your users in your website or your application and then save them into somewhere within your system. So this is just like a form of a data persistence, guys. So it's really cool, right? So I'm quite sure that you know that you can actually retrieve this content that is here and then use it anywhere you want to use it across your application. So that is it on that particular line. That one is done. So let's move on. So let's do an example that is going to be a lot closer to the modern things that we do today in the world of programming. And that's just, we're going to look for a way to write users data into a particular file, and then be able to also fetch them and then display them. All right. So to do that, what I want to do is to create a new file. So if we right click on this, and I want to create, we're going to just call this users.json. So of course it just basically going to be empty. So I want to close every other file right here. Let's close this out, and also close this particular one out. So we have only this open, and we have that right there. So what I want to do next is to, of course this is going to be empty for now, but as we try to run the code, this place is actually going to be, it's going to get populated. So let's right click in here again, and I'm going to just create a Python file in here. And with this file, let's say we're going to just basically create a user right here. So let's say create underscore user. This is going to be .python. So I'm going to just open that up. So we do have that right here. And what I'm going to do, of course, we need to import our JSON first of all. So if we have our JSON imported, the next thing I want to do is to create something like a list. So I'm going to just do list. Let's put that in the variable called the users, and we can go ahead and set that to the following. This is how it's going to be. So within this particular list right here, I'm going to create some dictionaries inside of it. Just use every single dictionary to define a particular user. So to do that, if I throw in my curly brackets in here, so the first person, let's create an ID for the person right here. Let's do colon, and maybe this person is going to be number 1, and after that we are going to create the person's name right here, and let's basically go ahead and call this person let's call this person Alice, and let's introduce a command here. Let's say Alice, the role of Alice is actually going to be something like an admin. So for that reason, if we do role, throw in our stuff right here. So we'll call this person an admin, and that is just that on that line. So we can introduce a comma down here, but then I want to copy this particular line and paste it maybe one more time. And what I want to do, let's make sure we type this a little bit over. What I want to do right here, I want to change this to user first of all. That's the person. So change his name. Maybe I'm going to just call this person Bob. His ID is basically going to change to number 2 right here. All right, and that is just that on those lines. And we want to take away this last comment here. But if you have another item that you want to like insert, you can still introduce a comment here, then add another line. All right, but these 2 persons should be enough for me right now with what I want to experiment with. So if I do with keyword right here, and I'm going to use the open method, and I'm going to just, first of all, what I want to do on this right now, within this particular open method, let's first of all reference to the file that we just created called the users, because that's just basically where we're going to actually write these users into. All right, so to do that, let's put that in a notation called that users.json, and we're going to introduce a command here. And what we basically want to do is to just write to it. So for that reason, we're going to put a W right here, and if we do that, we're going to do the as file and introduce our stuff right in here. So down here, we can just do JSON dot, this is going to be dump. So we'll do dump right here, and we're going to just do within this place, this is going to be users, introduce a comma, and then after that, we're going to just say file, and then the last parameter that we're going to need is to just indent that, so just to make sure that everything looks just fine. All right, so we have that right in there. So down here, the next thing we'll need to do is to basically print maybe a message to the user of the application that that particular person has been correctly created or something like that. So to do that is only very simple. What do we do? So we can just use our print method right here, and we're going to just say user created successfully. All right, so we have that right there. So if we save the changes and then we'll run this code right in here, you see we'll have a user created successfully. And then if you check here, you see that we do have 2 users within this particular place right here. All right, so we do have the first person here, which is Alice, an admin, and then down here we do have a Bob right there, which is just basically a user. And that is just that. So the next thing I want to do is to look for a way to be able to fetch the content right here, or the data that is here, the users, and then be able to display them on maybe on a different page. If you want to use this page, it's still okay. But I think what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to just basically create a new file for that. So let's call that let's say this is going to be print underscore users, right? And this is basically going to be a Python file. So I will basically take this away and then repeat that. So let's right click on this, get in here, Python file, and let's say maybe view. I'm going to change that to view users dot you can just press A, it's going to add the .py by itself. So to do this right now is really very simple. How do we do that? We, of course, we're going to, first of all, I want to import this to this particular place, and the next thing we need is just going to be, I'm going to just copy this right here into this, and I want to modify this right here. So what do I want to do? Of course, I'm going to just do with open right here, and I'm going to just change this from write to read because I want to read at this time. And then down here, what I want to do on this particular line is really going to be to just be able to load file, right? So to do that, I would like to put this into something like a variable. So let's do users right here, and let's set that to be equal to, this is going to be JSON, and this time around we're not going to do dump right here, but rather we're going to just do load. So that's just what we're going to do to be able to load the users. So I want to take away these primes right here. I think we just basically load only the file this. So that is just that. So down here, what I want to do next is just basically I want to just do I want to just loop through the content in here. So I'm going to just do for users right here. What do I basically want to do? I just want to print. I'm going to just do print, and within this print right here, of course, what I want to do, I'm going to just put F right here here just for formatting the text right there. And after that, I will just do this is going to be user. I'll just do ID, and since I want to dynamically be able to get the ID right here, so I can just do something like I want to just do this particular. I want to just throw in my curly brackets in here, and I'm going to just do user. Remember that we're going to be using user. We just looped through this variable called the users right here, and we're now going to be making use of this particular user right here. So if I do user right here, everything is actually in there right now. I want to throw in my square bracket in there, and we can go ahead, throw in our single quotation, and the column that I want to get is actually called the ID. So if I do ID right here, I should be able to get the ID right. So if we save the changes, I want to test first of all. So if we hit in here, and we'll take a look in here, see that we are getting the IDs, right? So we're basically getting the IDs. So if we want to get other things within this particular place right now, let's say for instance, we want to get the name, we can also do that. So if I introduce a comma here, and of course I want to copy, let me copy this down here. What I want to do, nothing, just within this particular place, I'm going to just find a way to get the name of the user, right? So to do that, I'm going to just do name, and let's throw in a colon right here, and I want to paste what I copied to the clipboard, and I want to change this from what it is right now to name. And after that, the next one is actually going to be the row. To do that, let's do row right here. So this is going to be row, and paste that again. And this time around, I'm going to take away this last comma, and then within this place, I'm going to just change this to row. So this is going to be row, and I think that should just basically do it for us. I believe so. So if you save the changes and now run these, and you see that it's a kind of a print all of the things that we need in here, right? So look at the user ID being printed, and we do have the name right here set to Alice, and the row is an admin. And for the next person, look at his ID right here, and his name is actually Bob, and he has a row set to user right here. So you see how we were able to like dynamically fetch that from this particular page right here. So that's just how basically this works, okay? So and this looks like a lot more useful in the real world than whatever we've been actually doing, right? So with this, I think I have really created a real image in your mind on what this could actually do for you in the future. And I'm so happy that you guys kind of understand this, and I would like you to like build something useful with that. So this screenshot, you can actually take a look at that. So these are the methods that we use in this video, and if there's anyone that we haven't actually used, you can just read the description right there and then try to practice that. I think I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now, guys.